Hello everyone! Mr.G here, welcoming you to my new series, the bonus episodes. What are bonus episodes, you might ask? Well, as you might know, I review these old cards that are from an educational series from around the early to mid-2000s. But, as you might also know, these cards don't cover everything. So what about the animals or creatures that don't get covered? Well, that's where this series comes in. In this series, I'll be reviewing any creature that doesn't have a card. Well, sort of. I won't be talking about any creature that is too similar to another creature I already covered. Like, I've talked enough about giant theropods. I won't be doing any of that. But here's the good news for you guys. You guys will actually be able to make requests for this series. Just remember, I have absolute power over what gets made into a video, so don't be too sad if your request doesn't make it into a video. Also, one rule for requests regarding monsters, the thing they originated from must be at least 20 years old. And no deities. Yeah, I do not want to talk about deities, because they were always the hardest to make if I'm being honest. Other than that, though, you can basically request whatever you want. So, for the first episode of this bonus series, I figured I'd talk about the most famous movie monster, second most famous movie monster, King Kong. The word Kong is derived from Congo. Basically, they just got rid of the O and the C was replaced with a K because the director thought it sounded cooler. Kong is an individual. He's pretty neutral, all things considered. Yes, he attacked New York City, but to be fair to him, he was literally taken away from his homeland, and there he's considered a great protector. So, yeah, neutral. He comes from the fictional Skull Island, and he originated from the movie named after himself. Now, one interesting thing to note about King Kong, despite the fact that everyone refers to him as a giant gorilla, in the first movie, this actually wasn't supposed to be the case. In the original King Kong, Kong was just meant to be a giant ape. He wasn't meant to be a specific species of ape or genus or anything like that, he was just a giant ape. However, because of his resemblance to a gorilla, later media fully capitalized on that and turned him into just an upscaled gorilla. The plot of King Kong is pretty well known. Basically, a bunch of movie makers are heading towards the mysterious Skull Island, but then they get captured by natives, and then the leading actress is about to be sacrificed to their protector known as Kong, but then he ends up falling in love with her, so instead of eating her, he just, takes her away. And then shenanigans happen, he gets into a bunch of fights, he gets into a wrestling match with a T-Rex, and eventually Kong gets captured and taken to New York City where he's paraded around as an attraction before he escapes, finds the actress, and then climbs all the way to the top of the Empire State Building where he ends up getting shot down and falls about 1,000 feet, dying. 'Twas beauty that killed the beast. Upon its release, King Kong quickly became one of the highest grossing movies of its time, making about $5 million. That might not sound like much, but remember, this is during the Great Depression. And if you adjust for inflation, that's definitely a lot more. This movie was such a big hit that a sequel called Son of Kong came out the exact same year, which, if I'm not mistaken, makes this the shortest turnaround for a sequel ever. Although I could be wrong. Maybe there's like a sequel that came out within like a week of the original film, but that seems highly unlikely. Now, there are a lot of movies and media about King Kong, so I'll only be sticking with some basic ones. First of all, in 1976, there was a remake. This one was significantly shorter, it cut out several plot points, and instead of climbing the Empire State Building, Kong instead climbs the Twin Towers. Awkward. In 2004, the director of Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson, made a remake of King Kong. This one was mostly CGI, while the original was stop motion, and this one was met with generally favorable reviews, with some even saying that it's better than the original. Most people's only complaint with the film tends to be that it's a bit too long. Then there's Kong Skull Island, a sort of remake. This one is kind of hard for me to classify. Basically, so I've heard some people call it a reboot, but is it like a reboot of the Peter Jackson King Kong, or is it its own content? Oh, whatever. It was the first film in what's known as the Monsterverse. It's basically a film series about giant monsters. But I'll get more into that in another video. Hint, 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 hint. This film does deviate a bit. Kong ends up surviving at the end, so yeah. And of course, King Kong has had a few tussles with a certain other monster that may or may not be coming up. Hint, 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 hint! To this day, King Kong is still one of the most famous movie monsters of all time, and he's had several parodies and homages. He was even the namesake for one of the first famous video game characters, Donkey Kong, although because of that, Nintendo actually ended up getting sued by Universal, due to the fact that they claimed that Donkey Kong was just a plain ripoff of King Kong. But Nintendo ended up winning the case due to the fact that the previous year Universal had declared that they didn't actually own the rights to King Kong. So, yeah. Now, if you're wondering if a monster like King Kong could exist, not really. The biggest ape that we know of is Gigantopithecus, which was about twice the size of the modern day gorilla. And a monster like King Kong would probably break the square cube law. You can't just upscale something and expect it to be perfectly fine. There are physics that prevent that. Well, that's all for this bonus episode. Leave your requests in the comments, and I will see if I can get to them. Bye!